Okay, Algebra 2, this is Homework 9, Lesson 9. All right, today we're going to be solving rational equations. All right, we have two methods. We have the method where we cross multiply because we have a proportion, which is what you see here in one, actually this whole first page. All right, but then we also have the second method where we're going to clear fractions. All right, so next to this method, write clear fractions. We did this earlier in the year. But what we do is we multiply each side of the equation by the least common denominator. So the smallest thing that everything in the bottom goes into, and we're going to clear fractions when we do that. So if you take a look at, question 7 here, we're going to multiply through by 6n. All right, that's 6n is the smallest thing that 3n and 6 go into, and when we do that, we're going to clear fractions. So we'll get there. But let's start at the beginning here with the first method of basically just cross multiplying. When you only have two fractions, one on one side and one on the other, you can clear fractions here. You can multiply through by the least common denominator. That will always work. So method 2, you can write will always work if you want. This way, is basically easier when you only have two fractions, and this way is going to be easier when you have multiple. And that's how we're going to do it that way. So the first method, when you have one fraction on each side, all you do is cross multiply. And that gives you 7x equals 4 times, don't forget to put this quantity, x minus 6, in parentheses. Because we don't know what it is, we have to put it in parentheses. All right, now you just solve. So we're going to distribute 4x minus 24. And we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. And that gives us 3x equals negative 24. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. And we get our answer of x equals negative 8. All right. Now we do have to check these answers because we can get extraneous solutions. Once again, whenever we're doing algebra where we have fractions and we have square roots, we want to check our solutions because in math there's a couple things that are complicated. Maybe they don't make sense right off the face value, and that is dividing by 0 and then also a negative underneath the square root. So anytime we have fractions where we could divide by 0 and anytime we have square roots, we do have to check those solutions. All right, so if you check this one, it does work. Plug it in. 7 over negative 14 equals 4 over negative 8. And, this is negative 1/2 equals negative 1/2. So it does check, and you get the right answer. All right, let's try another one. Number 3, once again, cross multiply. You get r squared equals 4 times r minus 1. And we're going to have to distribute. In this case, we have a quadratic. All right, so we're going to have to put this in standard form like we did when we solved quadratics by subtracting 4r from both sides. Okay, and then we also want to add 4 to both sides. So we're going to end up with r squared minus 4r plus 4 equals 0. And we're going to try to factor that. All right, that looks like it's a perfect square trinomial. All right, that's where you have basically the same thing each time, right? I noticed that pattern here, but we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 4 and add to be negative 4. So r minus 2 and r minus 2 do the trick. And basically we can make that r minus 2 squared. And if you square root both sides, if that helps, you get r minus 2 equals 0 basically. Add 2 to both sides, r equals 2. All right. That's the right answer. You can check it. It does work. All right, make sure you are checking these. All right, we can also check these in the calculator. I mean, obviously, like always, we can turn on your calculator and go to y equals and graph the left and right side and find the intersection point, right? So alpha y equals, graph the left side as x instead of r over x minus 1. And then graph the second equation as 4 divided by r, or 4 divided by x. Whoops. All right, and we take a look at the graph, and there should be an intersection at 2. So right about there, I'm seeing an intersection between these two hyperbolas. So second, calculate intersect. Click enter, enter, enter. And I need to go over to the right quadrant here. So, and it says 2. That's a calculator error, by the way. The calculator's approximation method to find these solutions. That's really 2. So anytime you see 99999, that's really 2. Okay, so, or really 9.99 was really 1. But 1.999 is really 2. So the answer is 2, just like we thought. All right, let's try another one. cross multiply once again. So we have 3 times quantity y plus 8, and that has to equal y times quantity y plus 5. And we can distribute 3y plus 24 equals, distribute here, y squared plus 5y. And we're going to put this in standard form once again. So I'm going to move everything to the right this time. Y squared plus, when you subtract 3y, you get 2y. And when you subtract 24, you have minus 24. And hopefully this factors pretty easily. I need two things that multiply to be 24 and add to be 2. So positive 6 and negative 4. Y plus 6 and y minus 4 does the trick. All right, and so my solutions are y equals negative 6 and y equals positive 4. All right, and if we check both of those solutions, they do both work. So let's put them in set notation, not ordered pair parentheses, but our little set notation that says these are both the answers. Okay, let's move on to method 2 now. Method 2 is where we clear fractions using the least common denominator. All right, so that's when we have like 3 fractions like this one here, number 7. All right, to clear those, the smallest thing that everything goes into, 3n and 6, is 6n. If you multiply through by 6n, I like to write it in the top here, what's going to happen is everything in the bottom goes into that, so everything in the bottom is going to cancel. So 3 goes into 6 2 times, so I'm left with right here 2 times 4 times n, which is 8n. Okay, then minus, and then what's here, let's see, n cancels with n, so I have 7 times 6, 42. And then over on the right side here, I have 6 and 6 cancel, so I'm left with just n. All right, so by clearing fractions, that's a really quick way to get rid of these fractions and make it a simple linear equation where we can solve by just our regular algebra tools, subtracting n from both sides, that's an n, and adding 42 to both sides and dividing by 7. All right, and you can check 6. That does work, so that is our solution. Let's try another one. Okay, they're getting a little harder here. So, first of all, I'm going to factor this bottom right here. So I have p over p minus 2 plus 2 equals 8 over... Now that's a difference of 2 squares. And we know how to factor that into p minus 2, p plus 2. We worked on that this year. Those are 2 perfect squares, so you take the square root of the first thing, square root of the second thing, and alternate. So that's how that factors. All right, now the smallest thing that everything in the bottom goes into is going to be this quantity right here, p minus 2, p plus 2. This is just a 1 right here, so that goes into anything, but we need to cancel this p minus 2, p plus 2, so that's what we're going to multiply through by. Now we have to do it to everything. So I'll do it in pen so you can kind of see the difference here. P minus 2, p plus 2. So I'm multiplying it to the top of everything. All right. And when I do that, the p minus 2 cancels with the p minus 2. All right. And that leaves me with p times p plus 2. And then here I just get 2 times p minus 2 times p plus 2. Nothing cancels there. This whole thing cancels, the whole bottom and this whole thing, so it ends up equaling 8. All right. So I do have a quadratic to solve from here. To solve this quadratic, I'm going to distribute the p. So I get p squared plus 2p. And then I'm going to FOIL this out. So I have 2 times quantity p squared minus 4. Right, that's just the difference of 2 squares. And then I have to distribute the 2 as well. All right, so I end up with 2p squared minus 8. And then I still have this over here. Okay, now let's put it in standard form. We have a p squared and a 2p squared, so that makes 3p squared. We have 2p, and then we have negative 8, and if I subtract 8 over, I get negative 16. All right, so now I'm to there. And now, wow, this is a really hard one. So far it's been tough, and it's still tougher. Now we have to factor this tough thing. So let's do factor by grouping for this one. All right, so we're trying to factor this thing into 2 factors. So I'm trying to replace this quantity down here, 3p squared plus 2p minus 16, into 2 things. Now I could try to guess and check. Actually, let's try to guess and check first. Obviously we need 3p and p. Now the question is, what 2 things multiply to be negative 16 that would work to give me my middle term? So let's try 8 and 2. All right. Now we need a negative in there, so one of these needs to be negative and one needs to be positive. All right, let's try and see if that works. That gives us 3p squared, and then we'd have 5p for our middle terms and negative 8p, so that would give me negative 3p. So that doesn't work, so let's switch them. All right, so let's switch the, let's do negative 2 first and positive 8. All right, let's try that. Middle terms give me 24p and negative 2p, so that didn't work. Let's try switching the signs, moving it back to what we had, 8 first, and then switching the signs. So the 8 would come first, then the 2, and let's make this positive and this negative. All right, try that. We get negative 6p plus 8p is the 2p, so that works. So guess and check can be quicker since there's only, you know, in this case, I don't know, there's like six ways we could rearrange and guess and check based on the factors of 16. Obviously, there's 4 and 4 to try, but I just tried 8 and 2 and switched the sign. So guess and check can work. If you guys want a quick review of factor by grouping, what we did for that, and I know we've done this in previous videos, but we're looking for two things that multiply to be the first and the last multiplied together, which would be 3 times 16, 48. So we need two things that multiply to be negative 48p squared, and we would need two things that add together to be 2p. So we would look for those factors and then replace this middle term by those two factors and then group together the first two and the second two. All right. So look back at previous videos if you forgot how to do that, but that's another method for factoring this. I know this is a tough one. You get two solutions out of this once we're done here factoring. You get p equals negative 8/3 by setting the first factor equal to 0. And you get p equals 2 by setting the second factor equal to 0. So here's your two solutions. Now, we do have to check those. It turns out that this one right here is extraneous because when you plug it back into the original equation, it does give you a division by 0, which we can't have. So this one we're going to say is extraneous, and our only solution that does work if you do check it is negative 8/3. Okay, I know I'm going fast through this, so please feel free to rewind and fast forward, do all those things. And also send me any questions, and I can, you know, reiterate or re-explain something that needs to be explained. But I only have 15 minutes for YouTube publications, so I'm trying to hurry as fast as I can here. So let's try one last one here. This one, we're going to multiply through by x plus 3. That is the least common denominator. All right, there's nothing, this 2 over 1, one goes into anything. So let's do x plus 3. These both cancel, and I end up with x plus 6 equals 2. Minus 5x plus 12. So that was pretty easy actually. If you, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to multiply the 2 by the x plus 3. So this 2 has an x plus 3 attached to it. My mistake. All right, so let's distribute that 2 to both of those. So I have 2x plus 6 and minus, and I also made another mistake. I forgot to put this quantity in parentheses. When I cancel these, that minus gets attached to both of these. That's really important that we put parentheses around that. All right, because then it's going to be minus 5x and minus 12. All right, so a couple rookie mistakes there on my part, but we got them fixed. Let's see here. Let's add like terms. Negative 3x and 6 and negative 12 make negative 6. All right, and then we have x plus 6. Add 3x to both sides. Gives us 4x. And let's subtract 6 from both sides so that we get negative 12. Divide both sides by 4. You get x equals negative 3 as your solution. Now, we do want to check that once again. If you look up here and you plug in negative 3, you can't do that because you'll be dividing by 0. And either side of this equation. We can't divide by 0. That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to say no solution for this one. That's really important. You do have to check your solutions. So no solution, and you know, just say that this is extraneous. All right. All right. I hope this helps. I hope these examples help. But once again, if you get stuck in the homework, just let me know what numbers they are. I'll record them, and we'll get through this. I appreciate all your guys' hard work. I hope this helps.